Welcome to the show. My name is Charlton with Big C. This is Charlton and Big C Sports. Coming to you worldwide on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C. And them good old boys down south, I want to say bienvenidos to all of our listeners in Latin America, also across the pond in London, England, as well as Paris, France. Of course, you good old boys in Canada. We love you in Africa, the Big C tribe. But there's no one we love more than the good old boys down south in the land of the free and the home of the brave on a beautiful July the 16th, 2019. Rondo Deportes, Big C. How's it going for you good old boys down south?
Charlton, is hot down here. I mean, we got media days going on. We got baseball back in full swing after the All-Star break. We got everything. The NBA Summer League is over. Now we're trying to go back across the pond again, Charlton, and play another sports that America is dominating.
Yeah, and I wonder why are so many athletes in sports leagues going across the pond? POTUS is only trying to kick out the people of color, Big C, so a lot of them good old boys are safe. The white guys don't have to worry about anything, Big C. We know it's all fair in love and war. A lot of things happening, even media days kicking off down south in the SEC. They're all trying to team up and figure if Auburn can knock off Oregon, or maybe they have other fish to fry, no pun intended. I do want to say it's beautiful in California, still out on summer, and we just want to bring you Big C Sports the way we love doing it. And I want to say today's show is sponsored by your Northern California Cadillac dealers, home of the all-new Cadillac Escalade, the standard of the world. And when you go by and test drive yours, tell them Charlton and Big C sent you. I want to get into this national hotline that anyone can call if they're going through some kind of issues, Big C. They can call 800-273-8255. That's 800-273-8255. Or if you prefer texting, you can text 838-255. That's 838-255. With everything happening in the world of sports, I don't want to feel like I don't read. I don't want to act like I don't read. But I know even the House had, they approved a resolution condemning POTUS's comments at Democrats. I mean, all Democrats joined. There was one independent and only 4 Republicans that denounced racism. This is 2019, Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, as you stated, only 4 Republicans denounced racism in America.
Yeah.
So 187 Republicans,
they're okay with it. Yep.
For racism in America, Charlton.
Yeah.
That's what that means. It's not about the ones who denounce racism. It's the ones who said nay against racism, that it's acceptable. If the president spews it, it's acceptable. It should be part of American society. So don't worry about those who voted it down. You want to concern yourself with those who voted that it's okay.
Yeah.
And that's the mode of America today, Charlton, when you have the House who is elected by the American citizens,
Yeah.
saying that racism, don't abolish it, that it's acceptable.
Yeah.
That's the most troubling part about what occurred today. I'm not concerned about voting it down.
Right.
That's really meaningless. That's just a bill that's passed in the House. What U.S. citizen gets a chance to read any of the bills that are passed in the House? But the most abstaining thing today, Charlton, were those 187 Republicans saying that racism is acceptable in America.
Yeah, and so just more on what they said. I know a lot of people care about football. Who won the game? Who got recruited where? Where did some NBA player go? Sports is a billion-dollar industry, and boys and girls sports is the foundation to this billion-dollar industry. For the most part, the industries that make the most money, they're mostly led by African Americans. That's NFL, football. You have NBA basketball. You could throw in baseball, even though it's been, marginalized as far as people of color. But this is just, it's coming from CNN News, not Big C Sports saying it, but they strongly condemn POTUS and his racist comments, saying that members of Congress who are immigrants are those of our colleagues who are strongly assumed to be immigrants or people of color. There's no place for it being in Congress or the United States of America. So I'm glad that we have the writing on the wall to form a more perfect union, but I'm disheartened when we tell young people to turn the other cheek and treat your neighbors the way you want to be treated. Can we believe that white Americans behind closed doors are just like they were back in the 40s, where they can say all the vitriolic things as long as they can hide it behind it? Big C, your thoughts?
Charlton, you don't even have to say the 40s. You can say the 90s. You
Yeah.
can say the 2000s.
That's
this
true.
Is 2019. You don't have to go back to the 40s. This is 2019, where all the Republican members of the House are saying always acceptable to have racism in America.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we don't have to look back into history. All you have to do is walk outside. It's prominent in America, and it's prominent from our elected officials. And if our elected officials condone racism, Charlton, there's no chance for equality in America.
Yeah.
It's not. I mean, it's been spewed for a long time. I mean, it's a dog whistle, and it's not a dog whistle.
Yeah.
It is a straight-out speech that's being said. You don't have to sit there and hide behind some symbol or some words. They said today in the House that racism is acceptable in America.
Yeah, and I thought, growing up as a young boy, I was talking to my mother, as we talk all the time on the phone, and I was talking about when I was a young boy, we used to go to a local store in the neighborhood, and it was owned by a white gentleman, and I was talking to my mother about how he called my brothers like the N-word. You little N's, get out of here. And we weren't doing anything wrong, but this was way back in the 70s, but he did it as if he said, hello, good morning, how you doing there? And to see what's going on in 2019, and I'm in California, but it's a little disheartening coming from the Oval Office. Big C, you see any hope for the next generation? Your thoughts?
Charlton, as long as we have old aristocratic white men running this country as politicians, status quo is status quo.
Yeah.
It has not changed. When you look at the makeup of the Congress now, Charlton, because it's been more diverse than any time in history from a Democratic perspective, Republicans are in fear. The fear-mongering is to exude racism,
Yeah.
to spew it, to let it be acceptable, Charlton, to try to gin up a base to get them out, to vote out the minorities. When you look at the Democratic side of Congress, it is more of a montage of what America is, Charlton. People from all over, different ethnicities.
Yeah.
The aristocratic white men that have run America forever have always felt entitlement and power. And they felt that they lost a little bit of that entitlement and power in the last 2018 election.
Yeah.
So the only way to bring back that entitlement and power is to do what the president has said. We're going to take America back. We're going to make America what it used to be, where it was racially divided, where you could do and say anything that you wanted to a person of color, any minority, and there was never any drawback from law enforcement or anything else because you control society through Congress and police enforcement.
Yeah.
That's what they're trying to do. And they said today in Congress, Charlton, the Republican members of the House said racism is what we want in America. So don't be misconstrued thinking that there's fairness, equality, and justice in America. They just want them to be in power.
Yeah, and I thought we had it bad when Mitt Romney was competing against President Obama, and he talked about that 47%. And to hear that there's only 4 dissenting Republicans that were saying that's not okay to treat people that way, that go back to your own country. And I mean, POTUS would have to send half his in-laws back, maybe all of them, Big C. But it's still a color issue. I know that Big C Sports is the only sports show in the universe that will talk about other than, hey, Big C, who won the game? Big C, how big and tall is this guy that's going to go to some school? Because just like Dr. King back in the day, and so many other people that wanted to make sure we had a better future, the late Billy Graham. If we don't talk about it, then we'll just have a lot of dumb guys talking about who won the game and who's going to go where. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, it's Americana is what it is.
Yeah.
For people who have always thought that equality would come someday in America, I think they finally got an eye-opening today just from the political perspective to say that there never will be equality in America. Because when you have our political houses voting for racism in America, it might sound good that the Democrats did a resolution
Yeah.
and it passed.
Right.
It's just because they control the House.
Yeah.
But until it's unilateral, Charlton, across the aisle, where it's bipartisan, and it was not bipartisan. There was only one part of the parties, Charlton, voting against that.
Yeah.
And so when you think about equality in America, America took a huge step back today because the Republicans say racism status quo is acceptable.
Yeah, give us your tired, give us your poor on the Statue of Liberty. I guess that just means for certain skin tones. Last thing I want to say on this, because we gave that national hotline, and I want people to understand, and hearing so many lawyers talk, whether it's television or in person, America is still a nation of the law. It's irrespective of what your political beliefs, irrespective of what gender you happen to be. No, none of that matters. We are all protected by the law, and we all have the rights that the law protects. But there's sometimes people fall through the cracks. There's a suicide number. And just if you need some type of help, 800-273-8255. That's 800-273-8255. Or you can text 838-255. That's 838-255. But I just want to be real with who Big C Sports is. And I don't believe in talking down to myself or placating my intelligence, because I do read a lot. I would hate to throw it away. So whatever I know or whatever Big C knows, I just ask people to Google it. It's a sports show, but we're people first. And we're the only sports show in the universe that will encourage people to pay attention to what's going on politically. I know a lot of people can't do that, but I will always do that. I also want to just focus on, as we jump into Major League Baseball, Big C, I know the Dodgers, being from the West Coast, I've been saying for the last 3 years they've been the best team in the National League, and of course getting to the World Series has proven that. But I didn't know how they would do going to Boston, a team that had beaten them in the World Series last year 4-1, and they won 2 out of 3 in that series, and then having to go to Philadelphia, a team that was just waiting for them to show up. Big C, they beat Philadelphia 16-2 last night after having an overnighter in Boston. What does it say about that team? I think that's the worst beating that Phillies have had in many decades. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, I think it's a wake-up call for the national media, who is always saying that they don't see the West Coast teams because most of the major media markets are on the East Coast, and by the time those late games come on, that they've gone to sleep already, after the first or second inning. But them showing up in Boston, Charlton, and dominating the Red Sox 2 out of 3 in that series, and not only that, one of those games, Charlton, going almost 5 hours.
Yeah.
And then showing up in the Philly, they were right for the taking. You figured at the Philadelphia Phillies, all they had to do was show up.
Show up, yep.
And they didn't show up.
Yeah.
The Dodgers kept scoring, and, there were chants in the stadium of the World Series for the Dodgers, Bellinger being the MVP.
Yeah.
And here's Cody Bellinger not making $1 million this year on his contract.
No.
And Bryce Harper playing the same position for the Phillies.
Yeah.
Making $330 million on his contract, Charlton.
Yep.
So as you look at the dominance of the Dodgers, of the Dodgers.
Yeah.
They can play at any time zone. It doesn't make a difference. Here they are coming right out of the All-Star break and picking up where they left off with the best record in baseball.
Yeah, and we just talked about the power rankings in baseball, especially coming after the All-Star break, and there's still some players will most likely be moved around, Big C, by the end of the week. Talked about the Yankees and the Dodgers being in the top 2. You can look at the Twins. They're up there. The Astros. I think the Braves have a strong team. Tampa Bay Rays have a good team. The Cubs. Also the Rangers. I thought the Red Sox needed this to turn their season around because they have the same players they had last year. But there's something about with the way the Dodgers are scoring runs. It's as if they have really no weaknesses. When Kershaw is no longer your best pitcher and you don't have to worry about him, folding in the playoffs, they're in really good shape now, Big C. Kershaw's not even the number 1 pitcher anymore. Your thoughts?
Well, this organization is built through their farm system over the decades, and they've stayed true to form, and you see the development of the young players that they have in the lineup. They moved off a couple players last year that they felt were no longer beneficial for the team.
Yeah.
And they got even stronger by doing that. When you look at the Dodgers lineup, when you got 2 rookies in the lineup, Charlton, and your second and third best players in the lineup, that really speaks well for your scouting system with the Dodgers.
Yeah.
These players have delivered. When you look at Drew, who has now become the dominant pitcher on the staff.
Yep.
Kershaw is still a great pitcher, but now all that pressure is not on him, and I think he's buckled under the pressure in the past. But as you look at the young players with the Dodgers, and we've talked about the youth movement in baseball,
Yeah.
the Dodgers are the leaders in that clubhouse as far as how the youth movement goes, Charlton, and their players have delivered. The stage has not been too grandiose for them. Yeah,
and I love to see the Dodgers win a World Series with the great Vin Scully, who's broadcast for many, many moons out of Chavez Ravine, Big C. It just having that opportunity for him. I'm really happy for him because he's been someone that I've admired over the years. He's one of those golden circle broadcasters that has really just etched himself in the sports universe when it comes to broadcasting. But I just love what we're seeing. Tonight we have a schedule which has almost everybody playing. But before I run down the schedule, can you give me a thought being an East Coast Southern guy? And again, they haven't won anything yet. And who knows what's going to happen when we get into August. Do the Dodgers remind you over the last, say, 3 or 4 decades of one of the top 5 teams? Or are we just looking at, the close history so far? Your thoughts?
Well, what I've noticed from the Dodgers, Charlton, in the past couple of years is they've been a team that hasn't been able to finish.
Yeah.
They haven't won a World Series since
88.
88. And they've had a long, dry spell in between that, Charlton, when you think 31 years between championships if they were able to win it this year. But they're still not a surefire bet to get it there this year. You think about the Atlanta Braves, who are just 5.5 games behind the Dodgers, and they're going to have a couple games that they have to play head-to-head.
Yeah.
They can put them right in the thick of things if they sweep that series from the Dodgers. So, the season still has many games left in it. The Dodgers have been healthy during the first part of the season. I think about the Yankees, who've been on an injury.
Oh, they're good.
They've had 14 players that they've had to put on the injury list this year, and they're still the best team in the East. So there's a lot of teams nipping at the heels. The Houston Astros, you can't count them out. They're hot. And Minnesota Twins, they're playing long ball all year long. So the Dodgers have had a great start.
Yep.
The season still is a long way to go, Charlton. And like I said, you can't go to sleep on the Atlanta Braves.
You can't go to sleep on the Braves. Tonight, the Dodgers at Philadelphia again. There's Buehler's throwing against Velasquez. You have Tampa at the New York Yankees. This is like playoff baseball right now. Washington at Baltimore. Detroit at Cleveland. Toronto. They're playing at Boston. And that's a series that Boston has to win. San Diego's at Miami. Arizona's at Texas. Cincinnati's at Chicago. I love the 2 seeds going at in the Midwest. Could you imagine, what was it, the big red wrecking crew back in the day? Many people think that Cincinnati Reds team, when they had Pete Rose and he was at the helm, they thought that was that best team maybe in baseball. Does that still, Cincinnati, Chicago, does that turn you on? Do you rush home to see that game, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, the Chicago Cubs, Charlton, always dominate the Midwest when it comes to baseball.
Yeah.
The Cincinnati Reds have struggled somewhat this year. The big red machine from the mid-'70s
Yep.
is no longer there, but they have power in the lineup.
Yeah.
Chicago, Joe Maddon's done a marvelous job of keeping that organization up on top of the heat.
Yep.
And they can present a challenge when it comes down the stretch.
Yeah, definitely I love the big. I wanted to get your thoughts on that because both teams, both organizations have the big C on their helmets. Big C. I really love that. Goes along with Big C Sports. Atlanta at Milwaukee. What a great series. New York Mets at Minnesota. Chicago White Sox at Kansas City Royals. Pittsburgh at St. Louis. The San Francisco Giants, they're at Colorado, the Rockies. Houston at Los Angeles Angels. And then Seattle at Oakland. I remember when the season began and Mike Trout got the $430 million. I would love to have $430 million. But I know when you go to L.A., I know they gave Trout a lot of money. I know he's a good player, and everyone's going to say you got to surround him with somebody. But I'm telling you, just being in Los Angeles, Big C, everybody's about the Dodgers. I thought it would be a Laker town, but the Lakers still have to figure out who they are. But the Dodgers, no matter where Mike Trout plays, they're still the team that gets people's attention in L.A., Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, the reason why the Dodgers have always been the team of L.A., you got to look at the championships that they've won down there, how competitive they've been. And when you think about the sports arena in L.A., the price of L.A., you talk about the $420 million that Mike Trout got.
Yeah.
He needed that just to be able to buy a house in L.A. Real estate is not cheap down there.
Yeah, I can understand.
That was the big reason they had to pay him.
So he can live on the beach.
But when you think about the Dodgers and all the teams down there, Charlton, you talk about ticket affordability.
Yeah.
They've always been a part of community. When you think about the Dodgers, they've done a lot to attract the Latino community.
Yep.
As part of that organization, Charlton, they've had a lot of Latin American players in their lineup. So the Dodgers have always been a community-based team. They
Yeah.
get out in the community, they embrace the community. When you look at the NFL, the Rams just came back.
Yep.
Tickets are unaffordable for the layman person. You can't get in the Staples Centers unless you have a six-figure salary.
Yeah.
So the Dodgers are the affordable community team around there.
Yeah, that's really the affordable community team. Never thought about being labeled that way. I just want to say in about 20 seconds, because I want to make a conscious effort to do this. And I won't do it every day, but I want to do it at least once a week. Rob Mendez, talking to people going through things. A lot of people going through things, Big C, especially seeing people in Los Angeles and doing the show live on the streets of LA, downtown Los Angeles, you have people that walk up to you and they're bold and they'll tell you what they want. But sometimes you have people missing limbs and you have people with all their body parts having aches and pains. Rob Mendez, high school coach, Prospect High School, just inspired me so much at the ESPYs and before then. Just one more thought on what it means to you. I don't want it to be a one day and done for Mr. Mendez and how we feel about him. Your thoughts?
Well, Charles, it's not a one day and done. I've known about this gentleman for some length of time. I mean, I look at Rob Mendez just like I would look at a wounded warrior coming back who served our great country over in the Middle East, Charles, and who's lost limbs and come back to this country and still a full spirit.
Yeah.
People who are able-bodied people who lack integrity go out and help themselves. And I know there's a lot of people that are down and out on their luck, but a lot of people also wish not to better themselves, Charlton.
Yeah.
But when you look at individuals like the wounded warriors that have come back from war, you look at somebody like Coach Bob Mendez, Charlton, who was born this way,
Yeah.
and who had to adapt to survive, and having a great support base around him, Charlton. Anybody who's going through anything in life needs a great support base.
Yeah.
But you also have to be willing to help and give yourself. And when you look at what Rob Mendez is giving to the young men that he inspires and work with every day, just like when we look at the Invictus game, that we think about those wounded warriors that have come back.
Oh, yeah.
Not just to America, but to other countries around the world, Charlton, to have that support base around them. Not only are they getting support, but they're giving support also, Charlton, with their mental strength that they have.
Yep, it's incredible. So I really appreciate him as a football coach. I want to make that transition to the NFL. I also want to get in some college football in the second half, Big C, because I look at one of the most successful coaches in the world of the NFL, and it's none other than Mike Tomlin, and how you think about Tomlin, 13th season as a Steelers head coach, 100 career wins, the first 157 games, 100 wins. He's the fastest in Steeler history. You talk about Chuck Nolan, Chuck Nolan back in the day, Big C. And he's always, no matter who they have, Chuck Nolan's the guy with 4 Super Bowls. But Tomlin has had the quickest path to 100 wins, even more than the great Chuck Nolan, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, when you look at the era that Chuck Nolan coached in, Charlton, there was not balance in the NFL like it is today.
Yeah.
There was not free agency in the NFL today. So when you drafted players, you had an opportunity to hold on to these players their entire career. They didn't have the ability to go to another team because there was more money out there on the slate. There was a set salary. Chuck Nolan coached players, Charlton, that didn't make $100,000.
Wow.
Think about that.
Yeah.
When you think about the mainstay of his organization, those players were not even making $100,000. There were just a couple on the team that were doing that.
Yeah.
Versus the player of today where they're holding out for millions and more millions. So Mike Tomlin has had a tougher road than what Chuck Nolan's had. It's always great to talk about the teams of the past and how they were strong in the era, which they were. But they cannot compete in this day's era, Charlton, because of free agency.
Yeah.
Free agency, it really forces a coach to coach. When you see a coach that is successful in today's era, Charlton, he could have coached in any era.
Oh, yeah.
Coaches that coached 50 years ago, 40 years ago, Charlton, they couldn't coach in today's era because they couldn't deal with the personalities and the mentalities of the players now, because players come and go at their own leisure. It's no longer a slave plantation that you're holding somebody down for their entire career.
Yeah, and we always say that sports is a billion-dollar industry, and boys and girls sports is the foundation to this billion-dollar industry. When we look at the Dallas Cowboys, you look at Ezekiel Elliott. What is it about Dallas and not wanting to pay their top player? It goes back to Emmitt Smith when they won the Super Bowls, and of course Troy Aikman got the credit, but they were 0-2 without Emmitt signing his contract. Now they're looking at Ezekiel Elliott. Do they want to give Ezekiel Elliott his money and make him a top paid player? And every time it comes up for a running back, I notice people start talking about injured players. If you think about how he led the NFL in rushing each of his first 3 seasons, Ezekiel Elliott, he did that. You go back to Earl Campbell, 1978 to 1980, and the great Jim Brown from 1957 to 1959. So if they have those 3 things in common, and they're Hall of Famers, wouldn't it make sense that you could almost pencil in Ezekiel Elliott at least as a Hall of Famer, even if not first ballot? Your thoughts?
Well, Charles, a potential Hall of Famer.
Potential.
You have to get to a point in your career. You have to stay healthy.
Yeah.
But also Ezekiel Elliott and asking for money. This is the mentality of Jerry Jones.
Yeah.
As you mentioned, he didn't pay
Emmitt
Smith. trying to get back to the Super Bowl. The team struggled.
Yeah.
Not only that, what I see Ezekiel Elliott looking at is not Emmitt Smith. He's looking at DeMarco Murray.
Yeah.
The Dallas Cowboys ran DeMarco Murray into the ground. I mean, the guy carried the ball 500 times in one season.
Yeah.
Tony Romo got paid. DeMarco Murray didn't.
Got injured. Yeah.
DeMarco Murray had to go on to another organization.
Yeah.
You got to look at the Dallas Cowboys, how they struggled 2 years ago when Ezekiel Elliott was suspended by the league for 6 games, Jonathan.
Yeah.
I believe they lost 5 of those 6 games.
Yeah.
And so the Dallas Cowboys have to understand, especially Jerry Jones, you've seen this show before.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
You've been on this rodeo ride, and it didn't turn out well for you before when you decided you want to get rid of the workhorse of your offense. Ezekiel Elliott makes Dak Prescott better.
Yeah.
Vice versa.
Yeah.
Dak Prescott has more time to understand what the defense is doing when Ezekiel Elliott is in the lineup, Jonathan.
Yeah.
Because you keep them stacked towards the line of scrimmage. Now, when I look at Jerry Jones, he has no problem paying all those offensive linemen.
Yeah.
Why do you have the highest paid offensive line in pro football if you're not willing to pay your running back and your quarterback?
Yeah, and it's amazing. You think about Elliott. He signed through 2020 season. Reportedly wants a contract extension about $3.9 million. $3.9 million when we just finished talking about baseball players and Mike Trout with their $430 million. And we talk about NBA basketball players signing for $200 million. But I would say that Elliott is as important to the Cowboys as anyone on their team because of the record you just pulled up when they didn't have him in the lineup. His mentality has to get better also because people don't want to just throw money away at players. And I know you said it's been hot down south. And I know you said you put a lot of butter on everything. But have you ever tried butter and oatmeal? Butter and oatmeal with some brown sugar, Big C. I took your advice. That's actually pretty good, Big C. Your thoughts?
Oh, yeah, butter makes everything explode.
Yep.
Well, you think about ice cream and the cream that's in ice cream. I mean,
Yeah.
That's what you make butter out of.
Yeah.
But butter is just one of those universal things, Jonathan, that's used around the world and everybody enjoys.
Yeah, everybody enjoys it. Now, thinking of butter, you have, I don't know if this is true or not, but I hear the offensive line, or maybe it's defensive line. Which one of the lines sprays some type of, it's either butter on their jerseys or some type of slippery spray so you can't grab them? Would that be defensive guys or offensive guys? Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Johnson, I'm going to assume that offensive players would do something illegal.
Right.
So offensive players are always trying to get anywhere. I'm going to say they do it.
Oh, yeah.
Allegedly, they had some substance other than just the material on their uniform.
Why did I ask you that question? Of course, the offensive guys are bad. So rookies reporting the training camp this week. You have the Cardinals, the Ravens. They're reporting on Wednesday, along with the Broncos on Wednesday. The Seahawks report on Wednesday. And then Thursday, you have the Lions, the Falcons, the Saints, and the Jets are doing it Friday. And then everybody will start pouring in, Big C. But give me your... I mean, it's hard to ask you this question because we don't know until we see a preseason game. Everybody has potential when you're in college. Everybody has potential when they play for another team. But it's how do you gel with the guys that you're with? Who are you looking forward to right now based on what you've seen in the offseason with the moves, Big C? Your thoughts?
When I look at the NFL, Charlton, I'm wondering what will repeat from last year.
Yeah.
When the New Orleans Saints still had that high-powered offense that they had, moving the ball up and down the field with reckless abandon, scoring a copious amount of points. Can the Kansas City Chiefs duplicate with Patrick Mahomes?
Yeah.
Is he going to have a third-year slump, which is really his second year as a starter? But will he be able to duplicate the 50 touchdown passes and the league MVP once again?
Yeah.
We saw the Rams in the Super Bowl. Will they be healthy enough to get back? They lost Cooper Kupp during the season. Todd Gurley wasn't the same when they got to the playoffs. He had some injuries. They lost a few players through free agency, Johnson.
Yeah.
Can they rebuild that defense? We know the New England Patriots constantly find a way to win.
Yeah.
How much more gas is in their tank? Will they be a solid team? Look, these are the things we look at when it comes to the NFL upcoming season.
Yeah.
And who will be the biggest disappointments? That's going to be the main thing. Who will be the biggest disappointments once the season starts?
Well, we know it's always exciting this time of the year. I'm watching a lot of CFL football, seeing a lot of great athletes up north. And then you hear about college football with Media Day and the SEC. And it seems like NFL is year-round football. So I just look forward to that, especially when I hear you talk about the NFL and as well as you do other sports and politics so well. I do want to say that sports is a billion-dollar industry, and boys and girls sports is the foundation to this billion-dollar industry, and that's why we ask you to follow Big C Sports. What we're going to do is take what's called the Big C pause, and we'll come back in a moment, and we hope you'll join us with us. All right, we are back from what's called the Big C pause, and you can follow Big C Sports 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on the #1 podcast network in the universe, iHeartRadio podcast. You can follow Big C Sports on Apple Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Google Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Spreaker. You can follow Big C Sports on YouTube. If you have a television at home and you have Comcast, Xfinity Comcast, you can follow Big C Sports on TV through Xfinity Comcast. What I really like is the app called Alexa. If you have Alexa, you can say, Alexa, play Big C Sports Podcast. You'll hear our commercial sponsors. You'll hear welcome to the show. I will introduce Big C, and then he'll do his thing. So I really thank our sponsors for all of their support. So congratulations to all the people getting ready for football. We know you're looking forward to a lot of sweat. Are they told don't eat butter, Big C, for a football training camp, or is it good for your circulation, Big C? Which one is true, Big C? Your thoughts? Yeah, that's true. I just want to say one more thing about baseball before we get into football, because I love it. I love all the sports, but football is kind of like it's like butter in my oatmeal. I really love it, Big C. On this day, July 16th, 1941, the great Joe DiMaggio, he extended his hit streak to 56 consecutive games, which remains, would you believe, it still remains the longest in Major League Baseball history. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, you think about Joe DiMaggio, the greatest hitter probably of his era, and, that 56-game hitting streak, that will never be touched because of the pitches that they use today. You use multiple pitches a game. But, I mean, this man was just a slugger. You think about what he did on and off the diamond.
Yeah.
Not only did he hit consecutive hit games for 56, though, but he had a grand slam when he married Marilyn Monroe.
Yeah. Yeah. When she wasn't in the White House. Big C, you can read between the lines. JFK, he also loved Marilyn Monroe as an actress, if you understand my drift. Now, what I know you love, more than butter on French toast, more than butter on French fries, and more than butter on pancakes. I think butter on pancakes is probably the most appropriate use, but if you try brown sugar and oatmeal with butter, I don't know if you can find anything that tastes much better. And I know they serve it at the SEC Media Day. The SEC just held their annual Media Day over the past 2 days in Birmingham, Alabama. Now, the conference had 5 teams with double-digit victories. You think about how the referees really pull for the SEC teams, Big C, because there's a lot of these home games for these guys. Alabama went 14-1. Georgia went 11-3. Kentucky went 10-3. Florida went 10-3. And LSU went 10-3. This is all from the same conference. You can go around the country in some Power 5 conferences, and 10-3 makes you the conference champion, Big C, but not in the SEC. Your thoughts?
Well, that's only on the West Coast.
Right.
When you talk about football being dominant in the South,
Yeah.
That's prominent right there. When you think about the dominance of that one single conference, and people always, ballyhooing about they should get more teams in the college playoff. But you think about having 5 double-digit win teams in one conference. These teams have to face each other, so those losses generally come within conference where they're knocking each other off. I mean, they have some of the highest paid coaches in America in the SEC, but there's a reason for it.
Yeah.
When you look at the productivity that these coaches are putting forth, Alabama's always looked up at being the top team in the SEC, but who is poised to knock them off? I mean, we saw LSU make a run last year under Orgeron when Kirby Smart has done a marvelous job at Georgia in his first 3 years down there at Charlton. Florida has caught his stride. Kentucky had the best season in history under Stoops last year with a 10-3 season. So, I mean, when we think about the SEC, can any of these teams repeat or duplicate what they did last season? We know what Alabama has been over the last several years under Saban. Which team can challenge him this year in that conference?
Well, I'm a West Coast guy, but I do understand when you have Alabama in the last decade that's played for a national championship. If you look at Georgia, they played for the chance to. They play for a national championship, but it's against Alabama, so conference cooking. And then Kentucky did not, but Florida's played for a national championship a decade and a half ago, back in the era of Tim Tebow. And then LSU also has played for a national championship, the last decade and a half. And when you think of one team that's conspicuously missing from that, it would be Auburn, because Auburn's had a team that every year, Big C, under Coach Malzahn, they're one of the best coached in the country. They have the same type of talent that Alabama gets, but no matter how good they are, they're kind of like the Angels compared to the Dodgers or the Clippers compared to the Lakers in LA. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, when you look at Malzahn is most likely on the hot seat down at Auburn this year, Charlton. This is a team that has not lived up to expectations since going out, knocking off 2 number ones in one season, Alabama and Georgia in the same season a couple of years ago, and making it to the SEC title game, Charlton. So this is a team that took a step back last year. They got to find a quarterback that can control it. They lost Stidham in the draft in New England.
Yeah.
So they're going to be a fresh team starting this year. But Gus Malzahn is most likely on the hot seat. He was 8-4 last year, which is just not good enough in SEC when you see you got 5 teams with double-digit wins.
Yeah, that's true. I want to ask you one more thought about SEC. It feels like when you look at Georgia and their losses to Alabama, the last 2 times they played, they were up. I mean, Alabama came from behind to win those games. Does that mean that Georgia had their chance and is gone? Or would you take Georgia and say that they are on par now with Alabama? But you got to win it. But they've been ahead more than they've been behind in those matchups, basically. Your thoughts?
They have been ahead more minutes than they have trailed against Alabama. Jacob Eason has finally got a ride. He's going to be a junior this year. He's a big quarterback. He has no excuses any longer. There's been quarterbacks in the conference that have catapulted above him. But being a 3-year starter, Charlton now at Georgia, he has to deliver the goods for a team. He has to find out a way to close in the big games, which he has not been able to do over his first 2 seasons, Charlton.
Yeah, he definitely has to learn that. I want to get your thoughts. And again, I still think that the West Coast this year will have more say-so in the bowl selection. I look at Oregon being a dominant team. I think Stanford's going to be a better team than a lot of people think. And I believe that USC will make a bounce back, maybe not for a conference championship, but they'll be in a high-tier bowl game. But if you think about what I'm going to ask you here, kind of a trivia question, what is the best college football team to go 8 wins and 4 losses on the regular season and have 4 blowout losses, or go 6-6 and make a mid-level bowl game, and they lost 5 very close games? That make any sense to your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, when you think about it, I mean, college football teams are always teetering.
Yeah.
And when you look at a team that goes 8-4, they say, well, just like with Auburn, they say, well, they were almost there.
Right.
But, they're not going to get in one of those top-tier bowl games. But, you got the alumni and everybody, they worry about the 4 blowout losses.
Yep.
I mean, and so when you take that in contrast to a team that goes 6-6, Charlton, but 5 of those 6 games were very competitive. And they say, we're almost there. I mean, that goes back to Jim Harbaugh in Michigan. And at some point, you got to deliver.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that he's in. When you look at Michigan, they had some very close losses in Jim Harbaugh's first couple of years. And people said, they were right there. They were there. They lost 5 games by less than, 4 points.
Right.
But they're still losses.
Still a loss.
Those are emotional victories for the fans.
Yeah.
And so when you do the comparison, I would rather have the 4 games that you just got blown out in.
Yeah.
Losses. They go on the loss category.
Yep.
Than to have these games that are nail biters and you're walking away from the stadium all distraught. I would rather leave early and beat the crowd.
And try to beat the crowd. I know that's true for a lot of people, especially in LA. The traffic is such. It's a deal to deal with, Big C. So looking at how exciting college football can be, of course, we still need to get some players paid, at least for their likeliness, Big C. And I know there's always pushback for that, but that has to happen if we're going to have what's called fairness. But I want to look at some of the college football rankings. Say let's say go to the top 10. I'm looking at Clemson. I'm looking at Alabama, Ohio State, and then Oklahoma. I also want to think Notre Dame under Kelly is going to be back in the thick of things. And I get your thoughts on my top 5 so far, and then we can finish out 6 through 10. Big C, your thoughts.
Well, those are all very strong programs when you look at whether we're talking about
Yeah.
They're not going to be, awestruck when it comes down to the season starting, Charlton. They hope not to have a hiccup.
Yeah, that's true. And if we look at the other, let's say top 6 through 10, LSU, you have Georgia, Texas, there's Florida, and then you look at Washington State. But of those teams, now which one of these could potentially lose their starting quarterback and still have a chance to win it all because they reload so well? Big C, your thoughts?
Well, that would be, a tough road for any of the top 10 teams to lose their quarterback. If you look at Alabama, Charlton, they had Jalen Hurts last year when they lost Tua.
Yeah.
And the year before that, when they lost to Jalen Hurts, they had Tua. Now they just have Tua. They don't have a proven backup. I know Tua's younger brother's a backup on the team, but he hasn't had any college reps. I look at Clemson, last year when they lost their starting quarterback, Lawrence.
Yeah.
They were able to come in and beat Syracuse in a game, Charlton, with a backup, and this was the week after Kelly Bryant had decided to transfer, and he ended up in North Carolina.
Yeah.
But as you go down the road, Charlton, and you look at those top teams, Oklahoma might be one of those teams, Charlton. Jalen Hurts has not been named the starter out there yet. They have 5 quarterbacks on their roster that are all competing for the top position. They also have a redshirt senior that is pushing Jalen Hurts, as well as a true freshman in Spencer Rattler. So they have a lot of competition at quarterback in Oklahoma. I don't know what Texas could do. Sam Ellinger is there. If he doesn't have a backup behind him, Charlton, other than a true freshman. We saw Florida struggle when they lost their quarterback. So it would be tough. I think the best suited in that position, Charlton, would be Clemson and Oklahoma if they were to lose their starting quarterbacks.
Let me get your thoughts on something historically, because as I'm looking at teams that most likely will be top 10 teams, I want to get your thinking on going back historically, because everyone's talking about Alabama now. But there was a time when Alabama was really Miami, because Miami was a team that was always winning championships. Even going back under the Pete Carroll era, they didn't have the bowl series the way it is now. But Pete Carroll, the way he coached USC between 2003 and 2008, I thought they could compete with anyone in the country. And then, of course, you look at Clemson. They're the new kid on the block, but only because they upset Alabama last year. Ohio State, that's a team that's always considered one of the top teams in the country, but they don't have the national championship to show for it. Which of these teams would you say has had the most dominant program? And, of course, there's always Notre Dame. But over the last 25, maybe even 30 years, which team would you think has built the most stability in their program, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, I mean, it's up and down, Charlton, when you look at that. Each one of these teams have gone through an era. You have to go back more than 25, 30 years, Charlton. You got to go back 60 years. You got to go back to Bud Wilkinson in Oklahoma, who had the longest winning streak in college football history, just like you talked about Joe DiMaggio.
Yeah.
Having a 56-game hitting streak. Bud Wilkinson had a 58-game winning streak at the University of Oklahoma.
Yep.
It took 6 years to lose a game at the University of Oklahoma. So when you talk about consecutive national championships, the most dominant program in all of football, we live now in the television era.
Yeah.
So everybody is enamored about what they can see on the highlight show and, muscle memory.
Yeah.
What they've seen from last week.
Yep.
You got to understand the research and the history of college football when you talk about the history. Yes, Miami had a great run. Notre Dame's had a great run. Oklahoma's had a great run. Recently, Alabama's had a great run. All these teams that you mentioned, but none of them had a greater run than Bud Wilkinson back in Oklahoma in the mid to late 50s, Charlton, with 58 consecutive wins.
Yeah, that's incredible. And now going back in the past, and right now Clemson is that new kid on the block. They, to me, are a lot like Auburn when you think about they can have a dominant team, and then they won a couple of championships. So did Auburn. They won a couple of championships. But this Clemson reminds me of Oregon, when Oregon had the chance to play Auburn for a national championship and also Ohio State for a national championship, and they lost. Had they won those 2 games, it would have put them in different lore, because only USC has won a national championship from the Pac-12 over the last decade and a half, even though I know that Oregon was right there knocking on the door, but they didn't quite get there. So when you look at schools like Oregon, and you look at a school like Georgia, and maybe even schools like Texas, outside of Texas knocking off USC, it's been many, many moons before they can host a national championship. And then Florida had their run. I thought it was a shame that the BCS did not align USC and Florida when they had the dominant teams. Washington State, not really there, but Washington has been. Would you say that there's a team that if they are in the position that Clemson was in before they knocked off Alabama, would it be some of those teams that I mentioned, Big C? Your thoughts?
I don't think so, Jonathan. If all the ifs and buts were put in the
Yeah.
But when I look at what Dabo Swinney has done in recent jobs,
Yeah.
he took the Alabama model and made it more athletic.
Yeah.
Is what he did.
Yep.
He did something quicker than what Nick Saban did. He said, okay, let's be athletic about what we're doing. Let's throw the ball. Let's spread the field. He's always had top-notch athletes in the decade that he's been at Clemson.
Yeah.
He's built through the defense. When you talk about those teams on the West Coast, they didn't have the dominant defenses that Clemson had. What team can you say has had 3 number 1 draft picks on their defensive line to win 2 national championships? Those guys have been together that long.
Yeah.
That's what Dabo Swinney has done. He has persuaded players to stay in school, to get their education, and to win. And to have been in the playoff run every year. That's what he's done, Charlton. That's
Yeah.
what's so phenomenal about what Clemson has done. You talk about those other teams, they've had spikes here and there, but the consistency, what Alabama and Clemson has had, we have not seen that in the modern era in college football. Even with the University of Miami would be the only one that would be close. But we're talking 30 years ago with the University of Miami.
Yeah.
That time has come and gone. We're talking about right now, Clemson and Alabama are the models of college football. The West Coast is still a step behind.
Let me ask you one more thought on college football, because going back over the days and even going back to the 50s, you think about the team, Newt Rockne and the team, Air Park season, the team that Notre Dame. If you take away that one year that Lou Holtz was smart enough not to play Miami again in a bowl game, he chose to play West Virginia. I think Major Harris was a quarterback, and they played him down in Tempe, Arizona, and Notre Dame beat them. But they had just gotten by Miami by 1 point, and some people thought Miami won that game. If you take away that game where they beat West Virginia, I think Miami would have knocked off Notre Dame. Again, like you said, ifs and buts. But do you think Notre Dame gets too much credit for having won championship? And the last time it was 1988, I believe. Your thoughts?
Well, Jonathan, it's the history of the program. Notre Dame is the most signature program in college football, even more so than Alabama is today.
Yeah.
Because they have their own network. They've been in America's eye since the 60s, Jonathan. They've always been on television. They used to have delayed games on Sunday.
Yeah.
Before the NFL started. So Notre Dame has been the American university when it comes to football.
Yeah.
So they're always, even when they're down, their alumni base is always there. You think about Notre Dame could have a losing season when Charlie Weiss was in. They had a sellout every game. You can't get a sellout in every game on the West Coast, even if a team is winning all the time. The only team that sells out on the West Coast is Oregon.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
You know, nobody else on the West Coast sells out a college football game. So you have to move, past Texas to get a sellout all the time, Charlton.
Yeah.
So when you think about Notre Dame's lore and what they've done, even when Lou Holtz was there, they've had historical coaches, Newt Rockne, Aaron Parseed, Charlton, and Lou Holtz, when you think about it. And then when you look at what Kelly has done since he's been there, he has not won a championship, but he's had a consistency in winning since he's been in Notre Dame.
Yeah, he has definitely been doing that. We talked earlier in the next 15, 20 minutes of Big C Sports, and I just love what we're doing from politics, just telling people, read. If you don't want to read, at least Google. But a lot of people with this hatred for people who were not born here, even though all the congresswomen are Americans, Big C, only one was born outside of the country but grew up in the United States of America. I think we were just joking about some of our sports people, and they were deciding that they were going to go outside of the country because they were listening to POTUS, just being flippant about that. But I know we have this great golf tournament coming up. Tiger Woods, his own words, he won the Masters in April, and his first major since 2008. And he's saying that maybe he lost a little bit of something, attention, whatever it is. But Tiger Woods, his Masters championship, he said it took a lot out of him. And I want to get your thoughts. We don't really want to hear that from someone who has won 15 majors. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, as I look at any older athlete, we just witnessed Wimbledon.
Yeah.
With Serena and Federer being 37 years old on the top of their game. Even though neither one of them won a title, Federer came within 2 sets of winning the Wimbledon title on the men's side.
Yeah.
They don't make excuses.
Yeah.
They haven't made excuses, Charlton, for losing in tournaments, but they have been competitive. But one thing they both said, and especially Serena, I need
Yeah.
to be at the top of my game.
Yeah.
Tiger Woods has been in that mode for a long time, Joe. Tiger was very fortunate to win the Masters.
Yeah.
Tiger might move the needle when it comes to broadcast, but Tiger doesn't strike fear in any golfer out there, Charlton, because he doesn't play enough.
Yeah.
Inconsistency is one of the things that harms athletes when they're not out there being competitive enough.
Every day, yeah.
As I got older in my career, I had to think differently than what I did 5 years older prior to that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I had to change my workout routine. And that's what Tiger hasn't done. Tiger needs to be more consistent about going out playing. I don't think that Tiger really wants to win. That's my personal mindset, is that Tiger doesn't want to win because Tiger doesn't compete enough to stay competitive.
Yeah. Well, he's going to be in the Open again, the Open Championships in Northern Ireland, and the competition in the field is going to be pretty tough. When you think about Tiger, I don't know why McIlroy is picked. He's 9-1 favorites to win it. Then Brooks Koepka. I still say Koepka's the best golfer out there. Dustin Johnson's 10-1 odds, and then you have Tiger Woods coming at 20-1. There's several other players as well. But I want to get your thoughts too on why McIlroy. I mean, he's got to win eventually, Big C, but he doesn't seem to dominate when he's around guys like Tiger or like Koepka or this Dustin Johnson. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, you're looking at this is home cooking for him. He's playing in his native land, Charles.
Yeah.
So he's going to be a lot more comfortable with the environment over there. I know a lot of the golfers, the top golfers in the world, have been over there for the last 2 or 3 weeks preparing.
Yeah.
Tiger stayed at home. He just got over there.
Yeah.
So he didn't have the mindset that he needed to be over there and be competitive. Roy McIlroy made it a point to be there, to be practicing, Charlton, on those hollow grounds where they're going to be playing the Open in.
Yeah.
Tiger Woods didn't look at it from that perspective, but being a younger golfer, Charlton, having more strength than what Tiger does, it does put him on the top of the heap along with Koepka.
Yeah. Well, also the Jon Rahm at 15-1, and then Justin Rose 20-1. I want to get your thoughts on one of the golfers that I like watching, just because I grew up in that era where you had guys like Phil Mickelson and of course Tiger Woods. Those guys competing against each other for championships and being the best golfers out there. People can talk about who they wanted to win, whether it was Phil or whether it was Tiger or anybody else. But I think about what's going on now with Phil. And you talked about as players get older. And I know you talk about in the South, a lot of people eat butter and they put butter on everything. Even some people put butter on eggs and toast and etc. Nothing wrong with that. But this gentleman, Mickelson, he's lost 15 pounds because everybody wants to stay in shape. But he said he did it by fasting, drinking mostly water and coffee. And I want to get your thoughts on him because 6 of the last 12 cuts he missed, and he's had one top 20 finish, Big C. But losing that 15 pounds, if he can keep it off, I think it's going to add to his longevity as a golfer, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, everybody is trying to stay in shape as they get older. I think about Phil losing the 15 pounds. That's just water weight.
Yeah.
That's all it is. If you're drinking water, you're going to dispense
Put it back
water
on.
out of your body.
Yeah.
So, you can stay full by drinking liquids.
Yeah.
So, Phil, it's not just losing the weight. Did you do anything to make your body stronger? A lot of times, Charlton, we see this with fighters when they dehydrate to make weight. We see that with wrestlers. I know growing up, wrestlers would dehydrate.
That's right.
To make weight, Charlton.
And put it back
But
on.
you also lose strength in that.
Yeah.
The boxers would make weight and all of a sudden they go rehydrate and eat a huge meal, Charlton, to get their strength back. Is Phil Mickelson going to do that? Is he going to be weak walking around the course, Charlton, if he doesn't eat enough carbohydrates?
Well, I know a lot of athletes like to eat a lot of meat, and I remember just hearing over the years how they put a lot of meat on, but they work it off too. Hopefully, everybody talk to your doctor. Of course, drinking just water, I know they say fasting is good. Just consult your doctor. Don't just hear what someone does on TV and start doing the same thing. I want to close out today talking about some NBA basketball, even if it's Summer League, the Memphis Grizzlies. Think about Coach John Taylor. He's yet to lead an official NBA game, but he's bringing home some hardware because they won the Summer League down in Vegas. Brandon Clark had 15 points, 16 rebounds, and he led the 8th-seeded Grizzlies, Memphis Grizzlies, 95-92 victory over the 3rd-seed Minnesota Timberwolves. And I'm sure they wish it was an NBA championship game, but Summer League at least is a start. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, it's a start, and you look at the Memphis Grizzlies, they're in the rebuilding mode, Charles.
Yeah.
But, we look at the Summer League, and what does the Summer League mean? It's practice. I mean,
Practice. Yeah. Practice.
Some of the top players don't even compete in the Summer League. The superstar, top #1 picks in the draft, Charlton.
Yeah.
Only one from Memphis showed up. So when you talk about the guys that were drafted before him and after him, they didn't deliver during the Summer League. So what are they going to do against the veterans once the league starts?
Yeah, that's always true. And when you get it against veterans, you got to really bring it because nobody is trying to give up the job. It's about how you get to the next level. And I love what you said many times. I think it was during the draft, the NBA draft. And there were a number of underclassmen that declared for the draft and they didn't get chosen. And now what do? You have guys that can make it in Summer League and they won't get a chance to make an NBA roster, Big C. So I love when you bring that to the attention of people in the sports universe. I think it's so important. I do want to say that sports is a billion-dollar industry, and boys and girls sports is the foundation to that billion-dollar industry. And that's why you should follow Big C Sports. And tell a friend you can follow Big C Sports 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on the #1 podcast network in the universe on iHeartRadio Podcast. You can follow Big C Sports on Apple Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Google Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Speaker. You can follow Big C Sports on YouTube. If you have a television set at home, you can follow Big C Sports on Xfinity Comcast. You can follow Big C Sports on the favorite app that I have called Alexa. Just say, Alexa, play Big C Sports Podcast. You'll hear from our sponsors. You'll hear welcome to the show. I'll introduce Big C, and he'll do his thing. Big C, I want to get one more thought on you on NBA before we close out today. Now, Westbrook going to join his old teammate in Harden. Now, I know everybody's excited about it at first when it was first announced. But at what time do you tell a champion, a guy with a championship pedigree, that you're going to go on a date, but he has to sit in the back seat and you sit in the front with the girl? Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, you have to be a champion first to do that. When you look at Harden and you look at Westbrook, neither one of them are an NBA champion. They have played in the finals, but that as far as they've gotten. They hadn't had a chance to host that goal in basketball.
Yeah.
So you look at the two men that are chasing Charlton. They have to learn how to defer to each other. I mean, the roles have changed from when they were in OKC as teammates. James Harden was a six man of the year when he was coming off the bench.
That's right.
Now he has been an NBA MVP. Russell Westbrook has been an NBA MVP. You're talking two of the last three MVP players, Charlton, in the NBA on the same team.
Yeah.
That's going to be a challenge. You're talking about a guy who has triple doubles over the last 3 years as an average for the season.
Yep.
And they're all meaningless because they did not equate to victories. You're talking about a guy who's had consecutive back-to-back scoring titles, Charlton, in the NBA.
Yeah.
Yet they have not equated into an NBA title. So you're looking at two players that need to find a way to hit the reset button.
Yep.
How do they alter their careers from what they have been? How do they get the rest of their teammates more involved? We know that Russell Westbrook will pass the basketball.
Yeah.
He will rebound with reckless abandon. But how do they get their other teammates, Tucker, Capella, these gentlemen, more involved in the offense than Houston? Because that's what they're going to need to do. They have to tone down their scoring just a little bit, diversify the offense if Houston wants to get past the semifinal rounds in the NBA playoffs.
Well, I told you one of my favorite shows has been The Bachelor. I was ashamed to say it for a while, but it's really about one woman and she dates 50 guys or kisses 50 guys, and they always have women acting like they're crestfallen because they weren't the one chosen to kiss one of the 50 guys. I think it's all fair love and war. The NBA, it reminds me of that too. Big C, back in the day, there was a man by the name of Drew Boudini Brown. He was known as Muhammad Ali's right-hand man, and he would always tell Ali, with all you got to use, how can you lose? Rumble, young men rumble. Big C, what are you looking forward to in the sports universe?
Well, Charlton, will the Dodgers be able to keep their hot streak going on the East Coast swing after the All-Star break? They're in Philadelphia. Will they be able to take care of them? But they have to get down the hot ladder and play those Braves. They knocked off the Braves last year in the AL playoffs, Charlton, but the Braves are only 5 games behind them. Can they be able to hold that lead, Charlton, or will the Braves close gaps?
Well, that's why we play the game. We watch to play the game, or we play to win the game. And somebody's trying to win the game, but you can win the game too. Every Monday through Friday at 5 and 6 p.m. worldwide when you follow Big C Sports on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C and them good old boys down south. As we always tell you, there's never, ever an excuse for domestic violence. If you know any man or woman going through that garbage, please pick up the phone and call 911, because no man or woman should ever have to go through that garbage on their own. And as we always tell you on every Big C Sports show, we thank you, we appreciate you, and we hope that you have a super fantastic day.